Good afternoon and welcome to another of our Agile Wittings. Today what we're going to be looking at is how we can work at a sustainable pace. How can we keep those blades in that wind farm turning round? And not just turning round, but keeping turning round forever. Sustainable energy, it's great. So here we are, let's have a think about the sprinting element within the Scrum framework. So in one of my previous Agile Wittings, we introduced all of the events that take part within a typical sprint. If you haven't watched that or you're not aware of it, feel free to go back and have a look at one of those other talks. So today what we're going to be doing is having a quick look at what's important about the sprint cycle, and one of the things that we need to be really conscious and aware of in terms of working at a sustainable pace. So let's have a look at a bit of a timeline. So within the Scrum framework, what we want to be doing is we've been working as a team for some time, so we've started sprinting and we're going to run a sprint. That's a short time box, couple of weeks. Remember, we talked about being one of the real common time periods for that sprint cycle. We're going to be sprinting, and then we're going to be sprinting, and we're going to be sprinting, and we're going to carry on sprinting and keeping going as long as we are working together as a product team. But what you'll notice looking at that, unlike sport, so in a sporting situation, I'm sure when you hear the word sprint, many of you might think about that 100-meter sprint in athletics. Imagine that sprint. You've got somebody running absolutely flat out for 100 metres. At the end of it, I'm sure you've seen the pictures on the TV, or maybe in reality, if you've done any athletics yourself. At the end of that 100 metres, quite often, at least one person is lying on the track, absolutely exhausted, unable to continue. That's not what we're looking to do in the workplace with our sprint cycle. Let's look at this. We're doing 100 metres. We're doing the 100 metres again. We're doing the next 100 metres. We're doing the next one. We're keeping going. We're not just in it even for the 1600 metres. We're not in it for the marathon or the ultra marathon. We want to keep sprinting after sprint after sprint after sprint. You'll notice looking at this that as we flow from one sprint to the next, look at that timeline. There's no gaps. So what that means is we have to be able to recover. We can't go all out and be flaked and fallen over flat on the track at the end of our first sprint or our third sprint or our fifth sprint. We want to have a sustainable pace. So if we're thinking about a sustainable pace, what that means is we have to think about and find out and explore just the right amount of work that we can bring in and that we can plan to do at the beginning of that sprint, enough work that keeps us busy and occupied during that sprint, that we can stay motivated, full of energy, enthused to develop our product. We can perhaps absorb a few little changes, but what we can't do is absorb a huge amount of extra work coming in every sprint, because if you have that all-out effort, the can you justs that sometimes come along, or the pressure to take too much into that sprint, what you will find is you will get to the end of a sprint, and instead of being able to carry on into the next sprint and into the next one, you'll get to the end of a sprint and people will be flailing. They'll be falling over. And then what will happen is you find you have to potentially cancel a sprint and say, we want to have a gap, a rest. We can't continue. We need to regroup. We need to think about readjusting our work, perhaps coping with a number of people being off sick or ill, or just simply demotivated. We don't want to be cancelling those sprints. What we want to be doing is making sure that we can keep sprinting. We can carry on and we can sprint again and again, and we can start keeping that momentum going, delivering value continually, moving forward into the future. So making sure that we start thinking about working at a sustainable pace is really, really key to what we're aiming to do. So let's drop back onto that sprint cycle that we introduced in our previous video where we used that analogy of the penny farthing to show our sprint cycle, to show our regular daily scrums, the daily stand-ups that we might be holding. We want to climb on that bicycle. We want to start pedaling, and we want to work at a sustainable pace, making sure that the amount of work that we carry out is something that we can absorb the impact of, so that we can continue to sprint, we can continue to deliver value, we can continue to listen to feedback from our customers, and we can be motivated and enthused within the workplace. So that's my key message for today. It's all about sustainability. Make sure that we think about how much work we can take into a sprint, enough to keep us busy, enough to keep us occupied, so we're not looking at taking things easy. However, make sure that you can absorb the impact of the work you're taking in, because we don't want to be cancelling those sprints. We want to have no gaps. We want to keep going, and we want to keep delivering value. So that's it for today's short talk. Look forward to seeing you all again soon. Cheers now.